And isn't the best acting always about making us feel our common humanity beyond separate identities? A black George Washington in Hamilton, of course. But Ryan Gosling as Frederick Douglass? Yes, that would be problematic. Ditto Shia LaBeouf as Shaft. No, it's... Why don't we just go by merit and let the best actor win? Which seems like what happened when Ana de Armas just got picked to play Marilyn Monroe, even though she's Cuban with an accent. Hey, maybe she should play Fidel Castro.
You know what's ironic? Acting was once celebrated as the art of becoming anyone, stepping into another person's shoes and bringing imagination to life. That was the beauty of it. But somehow, that idea has turned controversial. In today's Hollywood, pretending to be someone else can actually cost you your career. Welcome to the strange new era of woke casting, where fear and politics often outweigh creativity and skill. Bill Maher recently called out this growing absurdity in Hollywood, and honestly, it struck a chord. Someone had to address the elephant in the room. His criticism was aimed squarely at casting directors, the self-appointed gatekeepers of who gets hired and who gets canceled. According to him, too many of them care more about checking identity boxes than recognizing genuine talent. Take the uproar over James Franco playing Fidel Castro, John Leguizamo, who has portrayed characters ranging from a Venetian nobleman to a Frenchman and even an Italian plumber, called for a boycott claiming cultural appropriation. The irony? He built his own career playing roles outside his background. Yet suddenly, when someone else does the same, it becomes a moral offense. That's not activism. That's hypocrisy wrapped in virtue.
Casting directors have to stop listening to the casting police and go back to doing their job, which is picking the best actor for the role. Now, I mention this because a lot of people lately are either apologizing for or calling on others to apologize for playing roles they call appropriation. James Franco was just chosen to play Fidel Castro, and John Leguizamo posted, "No more appropriation. Boycott. That's up. I don't got a problem with Franco, but he ain't Latino." Okay, but John Leguizamo is Colombian American. He ain't a Venetian, but he played one.
You don't need to share someone's DNA to tell their tale. With passion and authenticity, what if the rule had existed indefinitely? Half of Hollywood's greatest performances would never have been seen.
He ain't a French little person or an Italian plumber, but he played them too because he's an actor. Why the hell do you think people become actors? Because they want to spend their life not being who they are.
Tom Hanks is Forrest Gump. Absolutely not. He is not, in fact, mentally challenged. Sean Penn portrays Harvey Milk. I'm not gay enough. I'm sorry. Lewis Daniel D. as Lincoln. Canceled. He's British. See how absurd this gets? And that's the beauty of Maher's point. Despite claims to the contrary, the woke mob is actually destroying representation. Because the more we limit who can play what, the smaller the field of art becomes. That's similar to telling painters they can only paint self-portraits. Is there anything creative about that?
Lewis really like? I haven't a clue, which is why he's so great. Because when he plays Lincoln, I only see Lincoln. I don't think, well, there's a British heterosexual. But Hanks says, I don't think people would accept the inauthenticity of a straight guy playing a gay guy. Because, quote, we're beyond that now. Don't get him started on bosom buddies. I mean, really? Does Forrest Gump get thrown under the bus too because Tom isn't really mentally challenged? And as far as we're beyond that, no, that implies progress. This is the opposite. This is regression.
But this is more than just one performer or position. It has to do with a mindset that is progressively stifling art. Hollywood is now paralyzed by fear. Everyone is worried about offending someone. They consequently offer the safest and most boring stuff possible. You feel that too as a viewer, don't you? The films have an inauthentic, antiseptic, and lifeless feel since the actors are no longer able to perform freely. They're being cautious. In every word and casting choice, politics triumphed over passion. Ma now made a really good point regarding Eddie Red. Remember how he played a transgender character in The Danish Girl? He was honored at the time for his courage in portraying the incident with compassion and nuance. However, he called it an error years later. Why? Because the woke population believes that only trans actors should portray trans characters. You have to ask yourself, why apologize for doing what actors do best? Acting is transformation.
Appropriating sounds like an unforgivable sin until you remember that's what acting is. That's why acting jobs are called roles. Sean Penn won an Oscar for playing gay civil rights martyr Harvey Milk. At the time, it was considered a courageous act of solidarity for a straight male movie star to play a homosexual. Now it's the opposite. Eddie Redmayne played a transgender woman in The Danish Girl, but now calls that a mistake because many people don't have a chair at the table. Well, actually, in movies now they do. And what does it have to do with you playing trans? Does it then work the other way? Can trans actors only play trans characters? Because that's not going to be a good deal for them.
Eddie's act was neither mocking nor disdainful. People were becoming more human as a result. He made the story understandable to a lot of people who might not have otherwise seen it. Isn't that what representation is for? That appears to be insufficient now, though, as the anger machine continues to operate. Even if everything is done well, progress is no longer the primary goal. The question is control and who has the authority to determine what is moral in art. And that's the part that folks need to realize. This ongoing moral policing does not elevate art. It flattens out, not to mention the disparity in treatment. Playing a traditionally white part with a minority actor is revolutionary representation. But when it is reversed, it turns into cultural appropriation. So which is it? Artistic independence that is just applicable in one context is impossible. Either no one has the chance to try out new roles or everyone does. The process of fairness is not selective.
Isn't the best acting always about making us feel our common humanity beyond separate identities? A black George Washington in Hamilton, of course. But Ryan Gosling as Frederick Douglass? Yes, that would be problematic. Ditto Shia LaBeouf as Shaft. No, it's... Why don't we just go by merit and let the best actor win? Which seems like what happened when Ana de Armas just got picked to play Marilyn Monroe, even though she's Cuban with an accent. Hey, maybe she should play Fidel Castro.
And think about Ana de Armas. The fact that she is Cuban and has an accent surprised many when she was cast as Marilyn Monroe, but she performed a great job. Her performance was haunting, emotional, and multi-layered. Isn't that the primary goal? Nobody cares about her past when she's on television. The fact that she became Marilyn worries them. That's how acting is supposed to be. But in today's Hollywood, such a casting choice is essentially a rebellion. And that's exactly what Maher is saying. When art ceases to be an expression of passion and instead becomes a political statement, we lose the essence of creativity. When every film is about who should or shouldn't play something, we stop telling stories and start managing outrage.
And James Franco can play Marilyn Monroe, and then we can all stay in our lanes. Is that what diversity and inclusion look like now? Everybody's staying in their lane? Lawrence of Arabia was gay. Peter O'Toole wasn't. I can live with that. Because he was so cool, he almost made me gay. Emma Stone caught hell for playing a Hawaiian, Jake Gyllenhaal for playing a Persian, Gal Gadot for wanting to play Cleopatra, Johnny Depp for playing an Indian, even though he's not an actual Comanche, and spoiler alert, he also doesn't really have scissor hands.
According to Philadelphia Today, Tom Hanks declined to take his Oscar-winning role since he is not gay and the character was. Think about that for a moment. One of the greatest performances ever. Today, it would be impossible to create a film that transcended boundaries, transformed hearts, and raised awareness. Why? Because we mistakenly interpret empathy as offense. Think about it. According to that logic, gay performers are only allowed to play gay roles. Trans performers can only play trans characters. Straight actors are unable to depict queer roles. But what about the others? Does this mean that a murderer can only be played by a real murderer or a war hero can only be played by someone who has actually participated in combat. It's crazy.
Tom Hanks now says that if Philadelphia were made today, he wouldn't do it because the character was gay and he's not. Well, besides the fact that this would force all gay actors to reveal their sexuality, even if they didn't want to, great actors, which Tom is one, try hard to keep their private lives private so we don't think of their real lives when we see them in a movie that attempts to transport us into a different world. Could you really look at this actress now and not think of the trial? Should she only play bed shitters now?
It entails imagining a life distinct from your own. That is the main concept. Remove that and check what's left. Let's face it, this authenticity-only rule hurts more than just performers. Instead of losing ourselves in a film, audiences suffer because they are constantly reminded of the actor's actual self. She's not really Hawaiian and he's not exactly Persian. It breaks the illusion. The enchantment has vanished. Movies start to feel more like lectures than storytelling. Who would desire that? You know what's really ironic? Advocates of these policies claim to value diversity, but in practice, they are restricting it. They contend that artwork should be kept inside little identifying boxes, all of them in their lane. But variety isn't about isolation. It's about exploring and connecting with other experiences via the use of imagination. By imagining lives that differ from our own, we might cultivate empathy. What these people are doing is not protecting diversity, it's dismantling it.
And it is, frankly, typical of so much wokeness that doesn't build on liberalism. It undoes it. Empathy, putting yourself in someone else's place so you can understand them better, used to be the very heart of liberalism. Now it's considered offensive because don't even try to put yourself in my shoes because you could never know. What a bunch of... That always was. Of course, no one can ever know exactly what another person's struggle is, but we try.
Maher drives his point home brilliantly. He reminds us that this new way of thinking isn't true liberalism at all. It's the complete opposite. Traditional liberalism was built on empathy, on the belief that you could connect with someone's experience even if you hadn't lived it yourself. That's what compassion used to mean. But the modern woke philosophy twists that idea. Now it's, you'll never understand my struggle, so don't even try. That's not empathy, it's exclusion disguised as sensitivity. Think back to Black Like Me, the book where a white journalist darkened his skin in the 1950s to understand what it was like to live as a Black man in America. His purpose wasn't mockery, it was empathy and awareness. Yet today, that same act would likely get him labeled a racist before anyone even listened to his intent. What once represented courage and understanding has been reduced to outrage and cancellation. It's hard not to feel that we've lost ground rather than gained it. Even Steven Spielberg, yes, the legendary filmmaker himself, discovered how unforgiving this mindset can be. When he remade West Side Story, he went to extraordinary lengths to ensure every actor's ethnicity perfectly matched their character's background, and still, he wasn't spared from criticism.
Black Like Me was a 1950s book about a white man who darkened his skin and went out into society because he wanted to understand what his Black brothers and sisters were up against. Today, all the woke mob would see about that was a guy who did blackface. Steven Spielberg recently remade West Side Story and bent over backwards to respect ethnicities and ended up pleasing nobody. And it's too bad because the original musical was created by Stephen Sondheim, Arthur Lorenz, and Leonard Bernstein, three gay Jews.
And that is why there is no joy in Hollywood right now. Everyone is exercising caution. The same company that once thrived on audacious innovation has now turned into a haven for fear. Instead of removing barriers, it makes ones. Instead of encouraging empathy, it discourages it. Instead of creating culture, the woke mob polices it. Ma summed it up nicely. This isn't progress. Under the garb of virtue, it is regression. It is eroding the universal human experience that art was made to respect, which is the worst thing. Acting serves to remind us of our common humanity rather than to separate us according to our backgrounds. When we stop trying to relate to each other, we stop being human. Maybe Hollywood needs to remember its purpose. Not an ideological courtroom, but a creative playground. Let the actors do their thing. Allow artists to express themselves freely. It is not appropriate to treat creativity like a crime scene. Because filtering every role through identity politics does not assist anyone, not the audience, not the performers, nor the art.
Next thing you're going to tell me street gangs don't even dance. And now they're making a movie about Leonard Bernstein, and Bradley Cooper is playing it. I mean, if he can get through the picket lines. You see, like, Rachel Brosnahan playing Mrs. Maisel and Helen Mirren playing Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir. Bradley is, sadly, a Gentile. And that's the new sin in Hollywood, being a non-Jewish actor portraying a Jew. Because that's always been the problem in Hollywood. Not enough.
Bill Maher has a point. Hollywood has completely lost its way. The industry that once championed creativity and imagination now seems trapped in a web of politics and fear. But maybe, just maybe, the first step toward reclaiming art is remembering that it doesn't belong to any ideology. Art is for everyone. It thrives on freedom, risk, and expression, and if we want it to survive, we have to let it breathe again. If you agree that art should remain open and unrestricted, go ahead and hit that like button, drop a comment, and tell me what you think. Should actors be free to take on any role, or must casting always mirror real-life identity? I'd love to hear your perspective. And don't forget to subscribe, because something tells me Hollywood would rather you didn't see the next video.